Hi, Stacy. How are you doing?
Good.
I'm ready for the questions right now for
Okay.
neuroscience. So, Stacy, how can neuroscience help you to rewire your brain after a life-changing situation? You know, like if you have a problem in your life, like a illness or divorce or whatever difficult challenge you face in your life, how can neuroscience help you?
It's so important when you've had a difficult situation, first of all, to process the situation, because sometimes in the world of positive psychology, people will tell you just get over it or just think about something positive. They now know that does not work, and it actually does the opposite effect. It's almost like shoving it under the rug. Well, eventually you've got to walk over this giant mountain that used to be the rug. So really what they say now is the best thing for you to do is to process the feelings that you're actually having and give your brain permission to have the feeling, but give your brain a new outlet for the feeling. So one of the things I do with my clients is I use this little formula. I feel blank because blank. And it lets you actually feel what it is you're feeling, but it forces you to explain why you feel that way. The because is the secret, because that moves you back into your prefrontal cortex instead of just your emotional brain. Because if you let your emotions take over, we've all had that, and they just spin out of control. And all of a sudden, you've spent 3 days in the bed crying, or you haven't eaten, or you've eaten, 10 pints of ice cream or whatever. That's when you're in an emotional frenzy. You want to move your brain back to the prefrontal cortex. So if you say, I feel betrayed because my husband just walked out and left. Now that I know that, I can, and that's the third part you add on, is give yourself a plan. Now that I know that, I can, decide how to move forward. I can cry for 3 weeks. I can't, whatever it is, but give yourself a plan so that you don't just spend forever being sad. Because there are people we all know that have spent the last 10 years being mad or holding a grudge or feeling upset about the job they lost back in 1985. If you keep letting your brain run the emotional frenzy and you don't move it to the thinking part with a plan of action, you'll stay there forever. Because every time you retell the story, you reactivate those same chemicals and that same neuron pathway as if it was happening again. So every time you tell the story about your divorce or when you got laid off from your job, you're reactivating all of those pathways and those emotions all over again.
That's so interesting. So my second question will be then, how do emotions alter your life and brain? You talk a little bit already about that, but what's happening when emotions, go through your brain?
Emotions are such a powerful part of the brain because they're also included with the chemicals of the brain. So our professor used to always tell us that emotions alter brain function. So when you're having a thought, you're usually having an electrical signal, unless the thought is tied to an emotion. And emotions create normally a chemical reaction. So those chemicals, when they're dumped into your system and they're activating these neurotransmitters, they are creating something much more powerful than just a thought. So let's take an example of coffee, since I got that. I can think about coffee and I can go, yeah, I know what it smells like. I know people drink it in the morning. Those are just thoughts, which are electrical signals. But if I think, oh my gosh, I love coffee, I can't hardly wait for the morning, I love to hold my cup with both sides of my hand, that you could tell I had an emotion. I also just dumped in chemicals in my system. Milliseconds, it happens. And so every emotion, normally it's the hurtful, sad, betrayed, angry, depressed. Those are also creating chemicals, and they are going throughout your system. So people that are severely depressed or have major anxiety, those are a little bit different than the people that are going through a specific situation, because that situation is more momentary unless you just keep rehashing and rehashing and rehashing. Like, I'm not still going through my divorce now. It's been 6 years, so I'm not still thinking about that. But I know people who do. I know people who rethink their divorce for every day for the next forever. And you're reactivating the chemicals. And it's always about the chemicals and what they're doing to your body.
Wow, that's so interesting. And how do we take control after a stressful situation? How do you go back to, you know, calm, happy brain state, you know?
Yes. Okay. So that's such a great question, because that is really what I teach people, is understanding the difference between the automatic brain and the intentional brain. Because our brains are lazy. They really are. They don't like to create new pathways. They love to go down the same pathway they've used over and over and over. For most of us, those are negative habits or things, you know, it's a lot easier to sit on the couch and eat Cheetos than it is to go work out, because that's the pathway of the least resistance. Our brain loves the pathway of least resistance. So new habits or new thoughts are going to create more effort for us, which is intentional brain versus automatic brain. So when we are in a stressful situation, stress is only meant to last for 3 minutes in the brain. And there's a great book called, I believe it's called Behave, but it's by Dr. Robert Sapolsky, who's the stress researcher in the world. He's fabulous. But he found out that stress, the chemicals of stress in our brain, which are normally cortisol, sometimes adrenaline, norepinephrine, those are only supposed to last about 3 minutes. And our body, when we are in stress, sends extra blood flow to your arms and to your legs. And because it's meant to help you run or fight your way out of it, and you're removing yourself from danger. The only problem is, in our society today, we live with chronic stress that lasts all day, not for 3 minutes, but it's moving still blood flow to your arms and legs, not to your brain. So we're not thinking at our highest levels. We're not performing at our highest levels. And the cortisol that we are under constantly is now linked to eating holes in the human brain. Our brains are not meant to withstand chronic stress or chronic cortisol. So one of the things that people need to do is understand, again, awareness, what your brain is doing, because it will work without you. It's meant to be automatic. It'll do all the things. It'll keep you alive. It'll breathe. It'll digest. How many times have we thought stuff and we're like, why am I thinking that? Your brain will work without you. But the difference in the people that are successful and happy is they make their brain work for them. It's intentional. So I still have stress even after I've been doing this 20 years, but I'm aware that it's happening. I catch it when it's happening, and I alter my chemicals because I have the control to alter my chemical state. So 2 tips that I'll give everybody to alter your stress chemicals. Number 1 is music. It works very quickly within seconds in your brain. My TED Talk is about how 30 seconds a day can change your life. It literally takes 30 seconds and you can completely alter your chemicals. But if you have, I have a list on my phone of 10 songs, and I call them my happy songs. And I know when I'm getting in a stressful or sad situation, I turn those music on, and here's the secret. It has to be music that makes you want to bounce, because that is telling you that the waves in your brain, the hertz of the music is at a high enough level that it makes you feel like you want to bounce. That's keeping you at a happy place. So that's why sometimes classical music or music we like doesn't give us the happy feeling that we're wanting, because it doesn't move you to a high enough frequency. I love Air Supply. I'm a child of the 70s and 80s. I love Air Supply, but it always makes me sad. Well, now I know why, because it's also linked to memories of my boyfriend in high school breaking up with me and, you know, singing, I'm all out of love. I'm so lost. And I'm like, oh no. So just because we like a song does not mean it's good for our brain. So be very careful and pick songs that are going to make you, you know, feel like you want to bounce. So I can do that anytime I'm sad, but I have to intentionally do it because my brain is not going to go, oh, you're sad, I'll try to help you. Does not happen. The second thing you can do is same thing, use this phone, is create a giggle list. So I also have 10 videos on my phone of things that make me laugh. And because laughter creates endorphins, pump your body full of happiness. But it's intentional. So I save like funny TikTok videos or, you know, funny memes or whatever. I just save them on my phone. And I know when I'm feeling sad, it's my responsibility to control my chemicals. So those two things I do all the time. I keep them with me. We all have our phone in our pocket or purse, but I have to choose to do it because your brain will keep you in that loop of thinking, well, I just want to sit here. I just want to be mad or whatever, because you have to intentionally change it.
Good. Sounds
that was a long answer. Sorry.
Easy to do. That's great. Yeah, that's a great tip. I do that with my daughter too. I treat her like, I tell her a joke when she's mad. And then she starts,
yes, because laughter changes your chemicals.
Yes.
Yeah.
So how, if we can rewire our brain, so how can we work in our neuroplasticity in our brain, you know, to rewire those things, you know, that are affecting us?
It's so, I think neuroplasticity is the greatest discovery of this century. Helping people understand your brain does not have to stay like it was. And understanding neuroplasticity just simply means your brain has the ability to rewire itself. But the way that it rewires itself is by multiple repetitions. So you can't do something one time and go, oh, I rewired my brain. That's not going to happen. Because the old pathways are deep and tight and thick. So if you think about, like, we call them here in Texas, ruts in the road. Do you know what that is? Like if you drive down a muddy road, like it makes we call them ruts. I don't know if other people call them that. Okay. Yeah. So, but once the ruts are there, then it's easier to just go back on those ruts again, instead of trying to make a new road. So that's what your brain is doing. If you've driven over that road multiple times or that pathway, it's easy for your brain to go do that one again. That's why bad habits are so hard to break, because they're a very tight pathway. So neuroplasticity is the same thing. You're just creating a new pathway, and the more you use it, the more likely your brain will use it again. And I have literally seen on a brain scan how old pathways will atrophy and die off when they're no longer used. And that's how you begin to build new habits or new goals or new thought processes, is repetition. Repetition is what creates plasticity. If you want something to change, you got to do it over and over and over until it's easy for your brain to go do it.
Okay, great. And how do we move forward after having a challenging past? Like, what would you suggest that will help us, you know, in terms of neuroscience, you know, to help our brains to move forward?
It's going to sound cliche, but it's really true, and it's backed by loads of science, is you've got to change your story. Because when you retell that story, and part of it may be true, but your perspective of it is only yours. And we think our brain sees the truth. Not so. Your brain sees your truth. And someone else could see the exact same situation completely differently, because no two brains are the same in all the world. They're just like thumbprints. They're wired completely differently based on your life experiences. And so your experiences give you one story or one perspective. Somebody else's may have another. So take something like mine, my divorce. I could sit around and think, oh my gosh, I was rejected. I was thrown away. There must be something wrong with me. Of course, I did think that in the beginning. That's the truth. But after a few weeks, I was like, girl, get up, get up. You have left your self-esteem and your happiness in somebody else's hands. This is your life. You better get up and rebuild it yourself. So I started telling myself a different story every single day. And I put pictures of myself on my mirror in the bathroom when I was happy and fun. I just, copied them on my phone and printed them out and put them on my mirror in my bathroom to remind myself, this is not the end of my story. I get the opportunity to build a new version. Yes, that was a chapter, but it doesn't have to be the end unless I keep letting the story end there. And so that's one thing I do is put those pictures so my brain can see me in a happy state instead of continually in this negative state of being. Then
so you're reminding your brain you're always in a happy state.
Yes, because otherwise the chemicals of sadness, which are dumping all that into your system, they're going to be what your brain thinks you are. And if you don't tell yourself a new story, you will keep living your old one. Then the second thing I did is create a statement, a mantra statement for me. And this is one reason why mantras don't work, is because people make a statement of, if they say I'm fit, firm, and healthy, but you're, like 50 pounds overweight, your brain is like, no, you're not. So you have to give your brain facts in order for it to believe this could be your identity. That's why all the, law of attraction, that really is a thing, but only if your brain believes it. If you don't believe that, you're doing yourself no good whatsoever, because your brain knows your thoughts and you can say whatever and you can do anything. But if your brain doesn't believe that's going to happen, you're not changing your own thought process until you believe it. So one of the things I wanted for myself, I picked 3 words. So I tell everybody, choose 3 words that if you went to a deserted island, and do you know Gilligan's Island, that show? We used to watch that as a kid. It was a show about these people who went on a yacht and they got shipwrecked and they were stuck there forever. But there were only 7 people. There were only 7 people on the whole boat, and everybody brought special qualities to the island.
Yeah.
Not everybody was smart, not everybody was strong, but each of them together brought something special to the island. So I tell all of my clients to pretend like you're on Gilligan's Island. What are 3 qualities? What are 3 gifts you bring to the island? You may not be all the things. You don't have to be. You just need 3. So I wrote the 3 words that I was, and you can, change them as time goes by. But, I can say I was kind, I'm motivated, and I'm happy. And I know that's what I would bring to the island. I can motivate people to do stuff. That's one of my gifts. I'm the brain cheerleader. And so I read those words because my brain did believe that's who I am. And I saw those pictures of me happy. I had my words. I wrote them with a dry erase marker on my bathroom mirror, and I wrote them big. And each week I would erase them and write them differently. I'd write them in cursive, or I'd write them whatever, until I completely embodied those things. And then, yes, I did have somebody leave me. Yes, I did have a divorce. But you know what? I am happy. I'm motivated. I'm kind. I know who I am, and I don't have to be everything. I just need to be this. I need to stay in my space, not the rest of the space. And before long, it took about 6 months. And I realized one day, I was like, oh my gosh, I haven't thought about this divorce at all. I'm not sad anymore. Yeah. But again, the secret is intentional action, because your brain will work automatically if you don't put it in another space. And that's really, I think, the secret to success is learning to shift your brain from automatic to intentional.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you have to find yourself again. And then when you're in that process, you forget about your problems. You just try to yourself again, because you kind of lost. When you have a problem or something you're facing, you lost yourself in the process, you know. So
yeah, because that part of my life was a chapter, but it's not the end of my story.
Yeah. Exactly. Great. That's so interesting. Thank you so much, Staci.
Oh, you're so welcome. See, that was can you imagine if I was trying to top that? I was like, oh my God. Yeah.
No, it was great. Thank you. No, thanks for helping me. Let me stop.